Hi guys, welcome back. Now that you've opened up your custodial accounts and you're investing, you may be following the news a little more closely each day when they report how the markets are doing. It can get a little confusing to understand what they're talking about. Commonly, you'll hear them talk about the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ. And the numbers are different. The Dow Jones is at 26,000 while the S&P is at 3,200 and the NASDAQ is at 10,000. You might think, just listening to the numbers, that the Dow Jones is doing much better than the other two. Well, those numbers don't quite equate to each other. Today we're going to talk about the Dow Jones Industrial Average and give you just an overview of what it is and how that number comes about. So the Dow Jones was started back in 1896. Currently it has 30 stocks in it. That's been since about the 1920s. Those stocks change from time to time, and there isn't really a set formula for how those stocks are picked. In fact, an article that I read recently in Kiplinger's states that factors such as company reputation and investor interest count significantly in selecting them. For instance, recently AT&T, well, I guess I shouldn't say recently, but AT&T was dropped from the Dow and replaced with Apple. It's weighted by share price. What does that mean? Well, it's strictly the price of the shares that affects the Dow. It has nothing to do with the number of shares, just the price, which is different than you'll see in the other two indexes. Over the past 15 years, it's had an 8.9% annualized return. That is better than the S&P 500 over that same time period. And the other thing to understand about it is that on average, you'll get 2.4% dividend yield from those 30 stocks. Remember, a dividend is something that the companies pay you just for owning their stock. That is different than the annualized return, meaning that you'll get a guaranteed 2.4% from them. I say guarantee, but there's never any guarantees. Obviously, companies can change their dividends either higher or lower. And then you'll also get some increase in the value of your stock as well. So the dividend's kind of a bonus. Now, you may be wondering, well, what companies make up the Dow Jones Industrial Average? So here's a chart that I borrowed from the internet. It's actually a little bit out of date. Recently, United Technologies spun off at least two of their companies, Carrier and Otis Elevator. And then they see that a current list of the Dow Jones shows Raytheon instead of United Technologies. Now, although these 30 companies are all in the Dow, they don't make up or they don't weigh as much within that number that you hear each night. What am I talking about with that? Well, we'll turn to this nice chart on slickcharts.com, which shows the 30 companies, and then it shows their share price, and then it shows what the weight is in that number that you hear each evening when they report how the stock market is doing. So Apple obviously has the highest price share in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Pfizer was the lowest on this day. You can see that Apple makes up almost 10% of the weight of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, followed by United Health Group and Home Depot. You can also see that if you take these three numbers here, they add up to almost a quarter, especially if you throw in Goldman Sachs. You're looking at a quarter of the Dow Jones Industrial Average in the top 3 or 4 stocks there, according to stock price. Why is that important? Well, if Apple loses 10% of its share price in a day, you can see that that will affect the Dow Jones Industrial Average far more than if Pfizer loses 10% of its share price in a day. You may be thinking, well, why hasn't the Dow recovered as much as the S&P 500 after this recent downturn in the stock market and its recovery? Well, certainly one of those factors could be Boeing. Boeing's current share price on that day was $169. Prior to that, Boeing was trading well over $300 a share. So you can see how losing that much of the share price of Boeing could certainly drastically affect the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Now, How else, or what else should you know about the Dow? Well, you can see here from this chart that I borrowed from the internet that it's heavily weighted toward information technology, in fact 25%, followed by healthcare and consumer discretionary. You'll also see that energy and materials only make up about 5% of the Dow by weight. Well, that's all I have for you about the Dow Jones Industrial Average today. Certainly, if you are tracking or buying an ETF that tracks the Dow Jones Industrial Average, you'll now understand which companies you're investing in, and you'll understand by weight what those companies are as they make up that Dow Jones Industrial Average. There are several different types of ETFs that invest in the Dow according to different weights. You can get some that follow it by equal weighting. Just depends on what it is that you're looking for. Well, I hope that was helpful, and next time we'll talk about and actually why it's not 500 but 505 stocks in the S&P 500. Until then, have a good day, and we'll talk to you later.